When the news broke about the melting of Arctic ice caps, it felt like the whole world saw it as a golden opportunity to cash in. And just like that, the race to claim the Arctic's future was on. Geopolitics, global trade, and environmental shifts collide in a high-stakes battle for control. But it does make sense because we're talking about a potential new global shipping route that could cut down thousands of miles off trade journeys, unlock untapped resources, and completely redraw the map of international power. This is more than just an economic opportunity. It's a race to dominate one of the world's most strategic and unpredictable frontiers. Today, we're talking about one of the most exciting and controversial developments of our time, the Arctic Silk Road. But what is it exactly? Why is it so important? And how did it all begin? Let's rewind a bit. So, the idea of using the Arctic for global shipping isn't exactly new. In fact, explorers and traders have been eyeing the region for centuries. The original Silk Road, the famous trade route that connected Europe with Asia, was all about moving goods like silk, spices, and other luxury items across vast distances. But as the centuries went on, shipping routes shifted, and more accessible sea routes replaced the traditional Silk Road. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the Arctic's potential for trade routes was largely forgotten, buried beneath thick layers of ice. But as global temperatures rise, the ice is melting at an alarming rate, and suddenly, the Arctic is becoming more navigable, opening up a whole new world of possibilities. That is how, in the early 2000s, Russia, with its vast northern coastline, started seriously exploring the idea of a northern sea route. By the 2010s, climate change had accelerated the melting of sea ice, and commercial shipping companies began realizing that this icy pathway could be a game changer. That's when the Arctic Silk Road became more than just a theory. It was officially on the map. First, let's talk about the route itself, which has been used sporadically for decades, but only recently has it become more viable due to the melting ice. Now, this route isn't just a straight line. It's complex and requires detailed planning to navigate. The ice conditions, which shift from year to year, have to be monitored constantly, and the route needs to be adjusted to accommodate the ever-changing environment. And it isn't just about ice and water, it also means carefully planning out the navigation channels and considering the weather and visibility challenges, as well as establishing emergency response capabilities in case ships get stuck or run into trouble in these icy waters. One of the most vital aspects of the Arctic Silk Road project is icebreaker technology. Ships can't just cruise through frozen waters without the help of specialized vessels designed to cut through thick ice. Of course, when we think of trade routes, we usually imagine ports with cranes, warehouses, and bustling activity. But the Arctic isn't exactly a place where you can build a bustling port in the middle of nowhere. That means a lot of design work goes into planning the infrastructure that will support this route, from harbors to refueling stations and maintenance docks. There are also major logistical concerns to consider: communication networks, navigational systems, and even things like rescue operations for ships in distress. For all of this to work, a robust and well-thought-out infrastructure plan needs to be in place to ensure the route is navigable, efficient, and safe. Now let's talk about why the Arctic Silk Road matters. This new route offers huge potential for trade between Europe and Asia, especially for goods that rely on fast transport, such as electronics, high-value goods, and fresh produce. With shipping times cut dramatically, the Arctic Silk Road could revolutionize the global economy. But the benefits aren't just about trade. The Arctic region holds untapped natural resources, including oil, gas, and minerals, which are now more accessible than ever before. Countries are eager to tap into these resources, and controlling the Arctic could mean economic and geopolitical power like never before. But here's where things get interesting. This isn't just a matter of opening a new trade route. It's about power. The race to control the Arctic Silk Road has quickly become a battle between countries like Russia, the United States, China, and several European nations. These countries are all looking to maximize their control over the route, its resources, and the geopolitical influence that comes with it. If anyone has a stake in the Arctic Silk Road, it's Russia. The Kremlin has been working for years to dominate the Northern Sea route, positioning itself as the key player in the region. Russia's interest in the Arctic is about access to valuable natural resources, and access to this crucial shipping lane. With the Arctic ice melting at a rapid pace, Russia is seizing the opportunity to expand its economic footprint, secure its territorial claims, and boost its geopolitical influence. It's basically Russia's golden opportunity to play a more dominant role on the global stage. Russia has been even investing heavily in infrastructure to control the Northern Sea route. We're talking about the development of ports, icebreakers, and military bases. Russia has also ramped up its shipping operations, aiming to make the route a vital part of its economy. The Kremlin's already pushed through legislation granting itself control over the Northern Sea route, and it's taking steps to build the legal framework that would allow it to regulate the passage of foreign vessels through the Arctic. Then there's China, and even they have a huge stake in the Arctic, despite being geographically far from it, because China sees the Arctic as a key link in its grand plan for global dominance. You see, China is heavily invested in its Belt and Road Initiative, its massive global infrastructure and trade network that aims to connect Asia, Europe, and Africa. And the Arctic Silk Road is a crucial part of this. If China can secure access to the Northern Sea route, it could cut shipping times significantly, making trade with Europe much faster and more cost-efficient. But China isn't just looking for a shortcut across the ocean. It's looking for influence. In 2018, China published an official Arctic policy, where it laid out its ambitions to be a near-Arctic state. And yes, it's actively looking to increase its presence in the region. China has invested in Arctic shipping companies, secured contracts for building ports and infrastructure, and even sent its own icebreakers to navigate the icy waters. And it's been heavily investing in Arctic research to better understand the region's potential. Beyond trade and infrastructure, China is very much interested in the Arctic's natural resources and also sees the Arctic as a way to expand its geopolitical influence. As the US and other Western nations focus on more traditional trade routes, China sees an opportunity to gain a foothold in an area that's quickly becoming more strategic. Now, here's the twist. While Russia and China are technically rivals in many parts of the world, their interests in the Arctic seem to align, at least for now. The two nations have formed a sort of strategic partnership, especially when it comes to the Arctic. Russia's Arctic expertise combined with China's financial power has made for a strong synergy. This partnership makes both countries stronger in the Arctic, but it also raises concerns for other nations, especially the US and its allies. China and Russia both recognize the Arctic's importance, not just as a trade route, but as a bargaining chip in global politics, and the two countries have made clear that they want to shape the future of the Arctic, and they're doing it together, with both economic and strategic ambitions in mind. But before we get too excited about the economic opportunities and global power shifts the Arctic Silk Road could bring, let's take a step back and talk about the risks and challenges that come with this ambitious project. First, we need to talk about the environment, because this is the big one. The Arctic is already on the front lines of climate change, with ice caps melting at an alarming rate. Shipping through the Arctic creates the risk of oil spills, pollution, and disruption of wildlife. The region is home to species like polar bears, seals, and whales, and we're talking about large-scale shipping traffic that could destroy habitats and impact migratory patterns. And let's not forget the carbon footprint. Moving through this route requires massive icebreakers and advanced ships that run on fossil fuels, which contributes to the very problem they're trying to exploit: global warming. It's a dangerous cycle that could end up doing more harm than good. Next up, we've got geopolitical risks. While Russia and China are making moves to control the Northern Sea route, the US, Canada, Norway, and Denmark also have interests in the region. The Arctic is rich in resources, and the race to claim territory is heating up. While Russia and China are expanding their influence through investments and partnerships, other nations are not happy. The US has already voiced concerns over Russia's growing military presence in the region, and Canada has disputed territorial claims in the Arctic. With military buildups and the potential for territorial disputes, the Arctic could become a new hotspot for international conflict. And then there's the challenging legal framework. A set of international treaties and agreements, like the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, governs the Arctic. But the rules aren't clear-cut, and there are plenty of gray areas when it comes to territorial claims and shipping rights. So, without clear international consensus on who controls what and how shipping should be regulated, the Arctic could become a legal minefield. Then, there's the problem of infrastructure. The region is sparsely populated, with very few ports or facilities that can support large-scale shipping operations. Finally, let's talk about the economic feasibility of the Arctic Silk Road. The idea of cutting thousands of miles off trade routes sounds great on paper, but the costs involved in setting up and maintaining Arctic shipping are extremely high. And there's also the question of market demand. Will businesses actually pay the premium to ship goods through this dangerous high-cost route? If it's not as reliable as other shipping options, or if the risks and costs outweigh the benefits, we could see companies back away from the Arctic Silk Road in favor of more established routes. So, what's next for the Arctic Silk Road? Well, there's still a long way to go before this route is fully realized. Countries will continue to invest in infrastructure, regulations will need to be put in place to protect the environment, and diplomatic negotiations will be crucial to ensure the region's stability. But the Arctic Silk Road is indeed one of the most important global developments of the 21st century. So, what do you think? Who will win this race? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.